never made, so I can quickly do this, so I don't, and yeah. So basically, I got this idea because we had a school project, like making a story, you know, and whoever had the best story can get like a coupon card code that we could win. Now I'm playing Call of Duty Cold War, and while it's then, guys, you're gonna listen to the story that I'm telling you. So basically, how this is gonna be working, you just see me playing Call of Duty Cold War whilst I'm explaining the story. So yeah, let's start with the story. The story starts off in the Cold War, in the Vietnam War, where the Americans and Japanese and the Russians were battling. One side, the Russians and the Japanese were battling each other. There were 30 Russians versus 10 Japanese. The 10 Japanese were running low on ammo, and if they would have retreated, they would have been an easy target for the Russians to shoot down quickly. So the only thing they could really do is take cover and make sure that the enemies won't come closer. After a tiny while, two dinosaurs started to appear on the island. The dinosaurs. One dinosaur came from behind the Russians and one in front of the Russians. The one behind the Russians was an iguanodon. The one in front of the Russians was a stegosaurus. They were battling each other. The dinosaurs made the Russians scared because the dinosaurs were dragons for the Russians. Well, that's what the Russians thought. The Russians thought that the dinosaurs, the iguanodon and stegosaurus, were dragons. Dragons that would appear for the bad side. So, the Russians were afraid. They ran away into a escape boat. Because why not? They're afraid of the dinosaurs. So, after they ran away, they went on the ship. The boat, then they went back to the big boat, to the, I think the attack boat was it? Yeah, the attack boat. The commander said, "Where's the rest?" The rest died whilst they were fleeing. Some of them were shooting back at the dragons for them. Well, yeah, I'm just gonna call them dragons if I'm talking about the Russians and escaping the dinosaurs. They fled. Some of them fighted back, but they didn't come out in one piece. They all died or lost body parts of them. So yeah. Out of 30 Russians, only 17 came back. The 13 died. Just trying to kill the dragons, what they call. After then, on the other side where the Japanese were battling the Americans were fleeing because they got the information about the Russians for the testing site for some kind of gas, some kind of poison gas or nuclear weapons. But not only did they flee of that, they fled because another dinosaur showed up. A dinosaur that ran out of the jungles. For some odd reason, it didn't attack the Japanese. It attacked the Americans. It was a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it didn't attack the Japanese. It was attacking the Americans. The reason behind it, you don't know why. So the T-Rex was attacking the Americans. The Americans fled on the helicopters. 5 of them landed. Did all 5 came back? All 5 helicopters came back, but only 3 of them were empty. The other 2 came filled back with soldiers. As a thank you from the Japanese, they gave dead American bodies to the T-Rex. The T-Rex, except accepted the gift as a thank you, and he ate. The Japanese got notified that the Russians are bringing a bomber jet to bombay the island. The Japanese after escaped. After the 10 Japanese soldiers wanted to bring the T-Rex with them, but the boat didn't have a lot of space to bring the T-Rex with it also, and the T-Rex was too heavy anyways. The T-Rex was left behind with the other 2 dinosaurs. The Japanese fled, and yeah. But it was not a normal bomber jet. It was a bomber jet with a nuke in it. So they nuked the place, but there were 10 people on the island, 10 Japanese that they couldn't save, or else more would die. After the 10 people died, after a while, then people came back to the well, not after a while, like a couple minutes. A fisherman group team came near the island and saw a man. He was oddly mutated of the radiation near the island. Had a big fat meats on him. They looked like muscles. After bringing the man to a hospital, that man was instantly brought to the scientists of the Japanese government. They learned about him that he was infected with the radiation of the Vietnam nuke. So after a couple weeks, he was starting to mutate, gaining more muscles, and his teeth mutating into more dinosaur looking, more like a T-Rex teeth. They left him after a couple weeks. 3 radiation signals on the island came. It was odd, because there were only supposed to be 1 radiation signal, that was the nuke. The giant radiation got sucked up and turned into these small ones, but these small ones were moving. 2 being kinda close, and the other one completely somewhere else on the island. After then, and a hazmat suit, a soldier team, scientist team, came on the Vietnam island to look what it was. But because they didn't look at the radar anymore, they saw a giant mutated T-Rex iguanodon stegosaurus looking thing. It was like it would have been mixed. The Japanese scientists could only say one thing. Because they maybe came too close, the bodies must have instantly transformed into one being. One of the scientists or soldiers called it Godzilla. After the Americans and Japanese, after the Cold War, teamed up to be a genetics soldier military team. Not called Monarch, no. It's called the Godzilla Force. Gojira stands for Godzilla in English. And the Japanese agreed with Godzilla. So Gojira sounded more Chinese. Don't know why, but it did. So, they learned about this Godzilla. But once it was on the island, the radar couldn't detect them. But they did detect radiation on the water, or under. But then they lost signal to it. After a couple years, it was 1999. the year where chaos happened. Godzilla was nowhere to be found still. Where a guy named Max Thompson, an American, he was working for a security manager, I think it's called, for a nuclear reactor thing. He was there, and after he came back home, before he went home, he looked at the computer, and it was a bit late, he was hallucinating a bit, till he came back home. Then he normally remembered that on the computer was something completely different. The radiation went higher and higher and higher. There was something wrong with it. The alarms would have been beeped, but they didn't beep because it was taking radiation of somewhere else, near the nuclear reactor. Max Thompson went out of his house, took his car and drove straight to the reactor. Max Thompson, just letting you know, was 30 years old. Max Thompson, while he was driving, he saw somewhere in the water, or in the ocean, some spikes coming out of the water. He found some spikes flickering on the water. There was an underwater submarine of the Americans near, because they were parking near, since it was the only close location to get some gasoline. Well, not gasoline, but to refill the batteries for the giant submarine. But they were attacked by a creature. After the creature standing up in the water, it was Godzilla. The only reason why? Well, there's spikes on the back. Look similar to the one on the Vietnam island. Why does Max Thompson know about it? Well, he was not on the Vietnam island, but the Japanese people were talking a lot about Godzilla. Because he did show up sometimes on the shore, but only rarely, and only some people saw it. Sometimes we were talking that he was not a real monster or dinosaur. But then after he still stood up, he had a nuke inside of his mouth. But he swallowed it, and it didn't explode or detonate in his mouth. It was just there, like he would have ate a gumball that was supposed to be just chewed and then sometimes spit it out, but yeah. Just a normal gumball. He just like swallowed it. And then he didn't want it to come near the reactor of the nuclear reactor, since he was afraid to get killed by the beast. Godzilla, after his spikes were flickering again, but this time he shooted out some laser beam, some blue laser beam. Max Thompson called it an atomic breath, since it was a radiation creature. Godzilla killed all of his friends in there, since he destroyed the whole nuclear reactor plant or whatever. He didn't want to come any closer and went to Dr. Sherizawa, a friend of him, a scientist working for the Japanese. That was a best friend, actually, of him. He went there. He quickly asked, what is that thing? Because Max Thompson did see Godzilla, but he never looked like that. So he was not sure if it was Godzilla or was it a baby. Just that he grew and then sometimes laid an egg. He said, it's the original Godzilla. He spelled the Godzilla out because I don't know why. He called it Godzilla. He said the only way to kill it is by using the oxygen destroyer, a bomb that he made, which would take away an oxygen of a some kilometer radius. He had an idea to go to his boat and lure Godzilla near, away from the city, more in the ocean or sea, whatever you want to call it, away from the ocean. Away from the city. He had it in a device that would make whale noises. After they went to the boat, they threw the device in the water and then activated the whale noises. Godzilla became attracted and went underwater and swam till his head was starting poking out, roaring at them both. Dr. Serizawa, whilst then already had his underwater suit on and prepared to sacrifice it. He said, I'll kill this beast once and for all. After Dr. Serizawa said, okay, pull me up. He pulled the string up, but the string was cut. Because Dr. Serizawa sacrificed himself, since he was the only one that knew how to make the oxygen destroyer. He didn't want more wars to break out with this super weapon. Since it was underwater, really deep underwater, nothing else got hurt except the fish and Godzilla in the radius. The military came with tanks and helicopters, whilst Godzilla was starting slowly to fall down. Before they shot, they saw that Godzilla was starting to be hurted. Godzilla fell down into the deep water, and all of his skin and meat were gone. The only remaining thing was the skeleton. And that was all from Godzilla, my first fan-made story. That was all. I think it's a shorter version of the original, we can kinda say. And yeah, if you liked it, and if you want the second part, let's go for 3 likes. 3 likes for the second Godzilla, we can say fan-made story. So, if you want another one, if you want a second one, smash that like button till it's 5, and I'll make another one. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, and if you like what you see on my YouTube channel, then please subscribe. And if you didn't, just do it. Except maybe a subscribe. Life. Subscribe or not. And if you want a second part, press the like button. See you guys in the next time. Bye.